Right, so Rishi Sunak's desperation, the levels of desperation that he's reached, and the sheer lack of talent in his party is now so blatant and so obvious that without seemingly any better alternatives on offer, which itself is almost beyond disbelief given his latest appointee, because he's made Jonathan Gullis Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party. Folks, if you thought Sunak had hit rock bottom by giving that gig before to Reform UK defector 30p Lee Anderson, it turns out Sunak has been performing some renovations, and now rock bottom has got a basement. But whilst we can ridicule this on its last legs, fit only for the glue factory spawning of the Conservative Party, the problem Sunak has with appointments is just as likely due to the sheer number of Tories no longer prepared to stand for the party come the next election, deciding instead to jump off the ship rather than suffer the embarrassment of losing their seats when that general election Sunak is desperately running away from inevitably comes, leaping like lemmings off the cliff, so to speak. And as he replaces Anderson with someone somehow even more of a parody of himself, he loses another minister and another MP as his cabinet continues to crumble. Right, so Rishi Sunak has appointed Stoke MP Jonathan Gullis as Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party in a move that many people are describing as scraping the bottom of the barrel. There have been a few appointments to cabinet of the Tory party and to government that have been described as scraping the bottom of the barrel, been described thusly. Perhaps such MPs should now be called scrapings or scrapees after the livestock disease. There is very much something about Tory MPs that makes you think of something disease-riddled. Certainly make you sick, don't they? Mad sheep disease, as Scrapey is, characterised by shambling, dodgy gaits and lip-smacking akin to the dribble that Tory MPs utter whenever they open their mouths, which all culminates in convulsive collapse, which is very much what most of us want to see happen to the entire Tory party itself. But if appointing Gullis is another barrel scraping, this can't possibly be any old ordinary barrel. This is a particularly fetid barrel. This is the sort of barrel you might find behind a butcher's shop, for example, filled with all the nasty, gristly bits they couldn't shove in a sausage somewhere. And when Sunak came to scrape the bottom of this particular barrel, he found something meaty and unpleasant, so he stuck a beard on it and made it Deputy Chair of the Tory party. I'd also argue that Rishi Sunak must have been as pissed as a mattress to have appointed the ridiculous Gullis to such a post. But then you remember Sunak's actually teetotal, and therefore he must have been stone cold sober when he decided this, which is frankly all the more scary and terrifying. Thankfully, Gullis will, in all likelihood, very soon be released back into the wild come October, when that general election Sunak is still intent on avoiding for as long as possible finally comes around. Good news for the country, who won't have to look or listen to him sounding off in Parliament, events akin to watching a chimp's backside speak. Good news for the people of Stoke as well, who won't have him as an MP any longer, though sadly they may still happen across him wandering around the place like a sack of lost marbles, and possibly shouting at seagulls whilst he's at it. A creature he has beef with after a Year 8 former pupil apparently photoshopped his head onto one and spread a Jonathan C. Gullis meme all around the school, in which he apparently went absolutely tonto. Yes, unbelievably, this shambles of a politician was once a teacher, so I suppose one saving grace is he has been appointed to be Deputy Chair of the Tory party and not Deputy Head of a school, in which case. What is infinitely more believable, given the state of the Tory party, however, its electoral chances of remaining in power pretty much blown to oblivion now, is that when Sunak told his staff to find himself a useful idiot to replace Anderson, Gullis answered on the first ring. Anyone will do at this point, and Gullis basically is anyone. What exactly does a Deputy Chair of the Tory party even do? Top up the soap dispensers at Tory party HQ for an extra 80k a year? Do you think he can be trusted to do that on his own? Satirists are out of a job now, that's for sure. Lee Anderson, of course, was a Red Wall MP, though, and so is Gullis, so it strikes me that this is the sole reason for this appointment. Sunak's desperation to hang on to some Red Wall seats, yet more and more of those voters are turning either back to Labour, especially as they become far more Tory, or towards Reform UK. And let's face it, that is exactly what the former Tory Deputy Chair did himself. Of course, this hasn't solved Rishi Sunak's staffing problems, because following this appointment, 2 more of his ministers resigned their posts, one of which we knew this was coming, but the other came out of nowhere, it seems. So can we still really say that with the state the Conservatives are in? Armed Forces Minister James Heappey had announced earlier this month that he was standing down from his ministerial role at the end of this month and would not be seeking re-election, joining a total of some 63 currently serving Tory MPs who won't be standing again at the next election, clearly fearing defeat and like rats are deserting the sinking ship. He's made good on this now, having formally resigned his ministerial post yesterday and has been replaced by someone called Leo Doherty, who I have absolutely no idea who that is. But the other resignation wasn't as expected, as the Skills Minister Robert Halfon resigned his post yesterday as well, and also announced that he wouldn't be standing again come the general election either. I can only assume this is because he can't find any skills within the Tory party and might have felt a bit of a hypocrite for holding such a post, trying to inflict skills on other people that perhaps he doesn't possess, or his party certainly. Who will be next then? Larry the Downing Street Cat? Now, as entertaining a thought that this might have happened in response to Jonathan Gullis dragging his knuckles towards the deputy chair role, there are actually more than one deputy chairs of the Tory party. Presumably they take turns to change said soap dispenser, as I mentioned earlier, and Lee Anderson had already been replaced. The vacancy for Gullis opened up because another deputy chair, Luke Hall, replaces Halfon as skills minister, so actually Halfon went first. Fundamentally, all this news is going to do is ramp up more calls for a general election to be called, and sooner rather than later, because it is frankly just insulting that this level of ineptitude just carries on. What is stopping Sunak? His fear of an election is just getting on everyone's nerves, and it's just making everything so much worse for the Tory party the longer he runs away from the inevitable. It just carries on. You've got Professor John Curtis now saying Labour have a 99% chance of winning the general election. Not that that is in any more reassuring in my view than the Tories staying in. And the Tories are now set to lose some 500 seats come the local elections, he said. Rumours are that the 1922 committee are only 2 letters short now of calling for a confidence vote in Sunak, which will just put the cherry on the cake right now for so many of us who are enjoying the Tory party implosion. So if they don't come before those May elections, which are expected to be bad, those 2 letters may very well come very shortly afterwards, and what will Sunak do then? Get toppled, or finally put us all out of our misery and vote his unelected backside out of number 10? Tories, above all else, are concerned only for themselves, which is why so many are getting out now, and indeed why some like Lee Anderson have jumped ship to Reform UK, thinking they've got better odds of keeping their seat that way. We should have people asking, especially those who so frequently pop up in comments urging people to vote for Reform, how stupid you must be to do so, since it is essentially a party that is run more like a company for one, but also that the representatives are basically just self-serving former Conservatives jumping ship like Lee Anderson, as this video here will tell you all about. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.